Good morning, everyone. And thanks a lot to SWA for inviting me to share with you guys about the idea that might be a bit old, but I think it's still relevant to be continued discussed in the modern day. So I'm Benny. I've been working about 5 years on this issue of human rights. And today I will share you some ideas based on what I have encountered every day, and to show you how human rights is still relevant at the present day. So I will start my talk with showing you these 3 people. I believe all of you know them. First one, you have Kartini, Nelson Mandela, and Helen Keller. There's one similarity between these 3 famous people. They were born in the time when discrimination was very systematic. They were highly discriminated only because they are being who they are. Kartini, born more than 100 years ago in a very patriarchal society. And she was a woman, and she was pushing that women should get access to education, and they have the right to work. And her legacy, we still feel it until today. 21st of April, every year, is Indonesian Women's Day. It's a Kartini Day. And Nelson Mandela, born in South Africa, when the black people were highly discriminated by the apartheid law. He was imprisoned, but he continued to use different peaceful methods to fight against the injustice. And the result, they removed the apartheid law, and now the black people in South Africa, they have the same access to every other race. And the third example is Helen Keller. She was born deaf and blind. And during that time in the United States, people were highly discriminated because they are people with a disability. They are deemed as they cannot do anything. But in the end, she was a great writer and really made change by changing the people's perspective on what person with disability can do. And now we are moving forward, and then you see this more famous people at the modern day. First, you have Emma Watson, a very well-known scholar and also artist, and you have Gus Dur, the former president of Indonesia, and also the head of the biggest Islamic organization in the world. In the modern day, Emma Watson, she has been talking a lot about the issue of women's rights, about women's equality. Because although the time has changed, decades has passed, centuries has passed, in the modern world, we still see that women are discriminated simply because they are a woman. And also Gus Dur, although he was the head of the biggest Islamic organization in the world, Nahdlatul Ulama, and he was a former president. Instead of using his power to, let's say, abuse the minority, he was actually speak up for the religious minority in Indonesia. So he was speaking up for a lot of people who are having different religion than him and belief than him. And with his influence, he managed to protect these people. So this is I'm giving you this example of how people with different profession can contribute. They are not directly, let's say, a human rights activist, but actually their work and their voice has an impact to make the world more equal and have a better situation. Now, and when we are talking about human rights, people often associate human rights as something, it's very political. It can be impractical, it's just ideas. It's too philosophical. And some people also think that human rights is merely a Western agenda to colonialize these developing countries. But if we are looking at it, like the cause that these people have fought before, it's not a Western idea. Human rights, the term human rights itself only born in 1948. But then the concept of people are equal is there for centuries already. And even in Indonesia itself, if you see in Indonesia, in our constitution, in the Indonesian constitution, human rights is one of the core of the Indonesian constitution. So human rights is actually coming from the people, from their struggle, from the systematic discrimination that they have faced, and they are result in like, okay, we cannot let this continue, so we need to speak up for ourselves and make a change. So the next question is like, why does it really matter, human rights at the moment? We are now free. We are in the free country. Indonesia is one of the most democratic country in Asia. But is it still relevant for us to talk about human rights in the modern day? And I will say yes. Because why? If we don't have our rights at this exact moment, we don't have our freedom to do what we want, we might not be able to gather here today. A simple example, if this event, this exact TEDx event is happening, let's say in Middle Eastern countries, in Iraq or in Saudi Arabia, a lot of women will not be able to present in this room. And also when another example, if we are doing this kind of talk, if I'm talking about human rights now in the country not too far from us, for example in Laos, where the government is very repressive, dictating its citizens what to say, what do they need to do. When I talk about human rights, I might disappear when I go home. So far I've been talking about the examples, but what really human rights movement has achieved? Is there any really good positive example that this human rights movement has achieved? So this is a picture of a labor protest more than a century ago in Australia and the United States. This is happening a lot. So when we are talking about the labor rights, labor people, what do they have actually achieved? Like before I work in this field, my thought about the labor movement was, okay, 1st of May is a holiday, it's great, but then all they do was causing traffic everywhere. They're just doing protests, demanding irrational things. But then the same exact irrational things that was advocated more than a decade ago was 5 days working per week. Before, like, people are really being exploited. There was slavery, people working 24/7 nonstop, and there's no standard. And this exact labor movement, at that time, people were thinking, this is irrational. People should work 24/7. But now they managed to set a new standard of a better way of working. This exact same movement also made a standard of maternity leave in the company. Before, when a woman got pregnant in the factory, they would just get fired. They said, when you are pregnant, you are useless, you cannot work, just go. But this movement has managed to change how the world views about the workers. So it is really important. And when we are talking about idea, I've been talking about something old, maybe something that you guys already know. But then human rights as an idea, it evolves over time. It's not say like only about the right to vote, about the equality, about the gender, about the women's rights. But now it moves into also to social media. There's this new thing called digital rights. This is to show that human rights evolve. Before, people, when they want to speak up what's on their mind, they might write a book, they might speak in public park, and etc. But now in the social media, people have the venue to express themselves freely, and they can say whatever they want, and they can. Then there's also a platform where people can gather support, like Change.org and etc. But at the same time, this exact social media, as a new platform for people to express their right, can also be used as a tool to harass people, to attack people for saying what they believe in. For a simple example, whenever you write something on your mind that might be debatable, people will start do a public comment. They might bully you. They might try to dig more information from the online profile of you, and they will use it to attack you. So, although human rights as an idea has evolved over time, you have the social media now, but then there's always a new challenge that we need to tackle together. And then when we are talking about the root cause, what actually caused this continuous struggle? Why people are keep struggling? Why people are keep talking about human rights? I would say because one of the root cause that we continue facing this challenge is the people with power who are corrupt. This is a very good quote by John Dolberg Acton. He's a philosopher from the UK. He says power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So human rights violations continue to happen in the different shape because people in power who are corrupt, they want to do anything they can, do whatever measure that they can to maintain their power or to expand their power. And the exact same people, they have a lot of influence, so a lot of people are following their way of thinking to continue using whatever measure possible to get what they want. But then people, they don't stop. They continue to do something to challenge this. I'm giving you one example from Indonesia. This is called a Kamisan action, which means they do this action every Thursday. They've been doing this for the past 11 years. Every Thursday, nonstop. They never skip one Thursday. It's simple. It's like a simple. They just silent and they just bring some banner. They are demanding for justice. Justice on what? On the human rights violation that was happening in the past, in the 1998 when there was a reformasi in Indonesia, and a lot of people becoming the victim. And until today, none of the perpetrator is being arrested or being brought into justice or the proper trial. So they continue to protest in front of the presidential palace every Thursday for more than 500 weeks. And the lady here, her name is Ibu Sumarsi. Her son was shot and killed during the protest in 1998. And until now, she's still looking for the answer. Although this action has not resulted in a very definite positive result because they still continue to this protest until now for 11 years, but it actually triggered other people to do the same, to try to speak up against the injustice that is happening around them. So this Kamisan action was initially conducted in Jakarta, but now it's happening all over Indonesia, and also inspired some other human rights movement in different countries. And when we are talking today, the forum where a lot of youth are here, the next generation of leader, what can youth actually do to make a change? Because now we are living in the relatively more free, better situation compared to the past. But then youth can still make an impact. They can make an impact. It is not because of situation is better, youth should stop talking about this. They should just enjoy themselves. I'm showing you one example. This is happening in the front of the Capitol building in the US, in the DC. So the youth at that time, they put 7,000 shoes. To show what? To show the number of youth and students who was killed by a gun violence in the United States since 2012. This is simple, no human presence in this field. But this simple movement is so powerful that you just need to put your shoes. And actually, this exact same movement really pushing the United States government on the regulation about the use of gun. And why again youth is important? Youth is one of the key stakeholders. The youth in this room and the former youth in this room. They are their leader. Youth in 10, 20 years, they are the leader. They'll be a director in a big company. They'll be the leader in their community. They might start their own movement. Even as simple as being the leader of the family. And being a human rights advocate, youth in the future as a human rights advocate, it does not mean you need to do something like Nelson Mandela or Gus Dur. It's just doing simple things. Just try to speak up against injustice that you see every day. If your friend are being bullied in the school, simply because they are different, they have different looks, they have different gender, they have different race, then you already defend the human rights. Because you are respecting other rights, other people's rights. And also it is important for you to make sure that you don't violate other people's rights to achieve what you want. For example, if you own a company in the future, you should not give the people an unfair wage, unfair salary, simply because you want to get richer. And also talking about this idea of human rights, it's not a rocket science. It's actually a simple kind of kindness, simple act of kindness. Talking about human rights is about the way you treat people as how you want to be treated by the others. Everyone wants to have equal opportunity. Everyone wants to have equal rights. Everyone wants to speak for themselves. So when you are respecting other people's rights and treat people as how you want to be treated, you are already implementing the idea of human rights. So I'm closing my talk today with one example. This is a university in Bangkok. It's called Chulalongkorn University. I'm giving this example because I'm from Bangkok, and I got this information from my friend who's working there. So if you see this low-rise building, it's the old building of a campus. So there was this one student. He has a disability. He needs to use a wheelchair. But then, since the campus is an old campus, they don't have access for people with disability to access this first and the second floor of the building. And what the student did at that time, they just simply speak up for their friends. They say to the campus, we are boycotting this class because our friend, he doesn't have access to the class. The building is not disability friendly. He cannot go to the second floor to have a class. And that simple action by his classmates result in the faculty actually move all the classes into the ground floor so that the person with disability, can have access to the same class with his classmates. And the exact attitude did by his classmates result in the policy change in the faculty. They started to renovate the old building to give access for this person with disability, and when they build the new building, they take this aspect into consideration. And again, this simple movement spread into the whole university, not only the faculty, and it set a new standard of giving access to persons with disability in the university in Thailand. So I'm ending my talk here, so I hope you get some insight from my talk, and I'm happy to talk later in person. Thank you.